Two heads, one tail, yang, yin. Two heads, one tail, yang, yin. Three heads, old yin. Two heads, one tail, yang, yin. Two tails, one head, yang, yang. Three tails, old yin. We'll start by reading a passage from the Book of Balance and Harmony. The Book of Balance and Harmony, these essays, conversations, poetry, and songs about the secrets of Taoism teach how to live a centered and orderly life. Veiled words. So it's like chapter 20 in there. Those who do not clearly understand are externally fixated on body, mind, society, and events, and they inwardly dwell on sensations, conceptions, actions, and consciousness. Therefore they change along with the world, are born and perish along with forms. Buddhist literature says if people want to know all the Buddhas of past, present, and future, they should see that the natures of the world of phenomena are all created by mind. This means that when there is creation, then there is change. Creation and change both derive from mind. People all think that what creates and changes myriad beings is the fashioner of creation and change, but I do not agree. There's basically no fashioner of creation and change. Beings create and change themselves. How is this so? All beings have mind, and it is because they have mind that there is creation and change. This is what I call self-creation and self-change. The forms of all in the world that has form are originally non-existent. Producing existence where there was none is called creation. When there is production, then there is destruction. When there is destruction, there is reversion to non-existence. This is called change. Repeated creation and change is the norm for beings. The essence of the unique reality is fundamentally existent. It exists but has no form, so it has no creation or change. This is the norm of the Tao. People only know it has no creation or change and think it does not create or change. They do not know there is great creation and change existing therein. Who can know this without clear understanding? Those with clear understanding, those whose knowledge and wisdom are perfected, are able to see all phenomena as empty of absoluteness. Then the unified mind returns to tranquility and lives independently in a transcendent state, and lives independently in a transcendent state. Therefore, there is no creation or change for them. Those who do not clearly understand are externally fixated on body, mind, society, and events, and they inwardly dwell on sensations, conceptions, actions, and consciousness. Therefore, they change along with the world, are born and perish along with forms. What the eye sees is called form. Received in the mind, it is called sensation. Once taken into the mind in the form of a mental picture, it is called conception. When conception continues, it leads to doing. This is called action. The result of action, conforming to the good or bad nature of the action, is called conditioned consciousness. The flurry of conditioned consciousness is the root of routine existence. Thus, it is impossible to get out of creation and change. Anyone who is not bound by illusory objects, not defiled by the impact of phenomena, not obstructed by wandering feelings, and not afflicted by craving, will then be able to see forms, sensations, conceptions, actions, and conditioned consciousness as empty of ultimate reality. Since these are empty, how can there be creation and change? This is what the Buddhists call the ineffable mind of nirvana. Taoist literature says being and non-being produce one another. That is, non-being produces being. This is creation. Being produces non-being. This is change. Taoist literature also says, effecting ultimate openness, keeping utterly quiet, as myriad things act in concert, I thereby watch the return. That is, watching return is knowing change. If you know change, you do not change. And if you do not change, how can there be creation? Who can reach this but those who see clearly, without obstruction? Those of clear perception, pure and illumined, can see that body, mind, society, and events exist in insubstantial illusion. Existence makes things and beings, which revert to insubstantial illusions once they have reached their culmination. Those who see in this way know the formless form is the true form. Because they nurture the formless form, they always preserve the bodiless body, and so they keep reality complete. When one is unadulterated, pure, completely whole, there is a merging with the infinite. In undifferentiated vastness, there is a merging with the unparalleled. Transcending even beyond open nothingness, this is called freedom from creation and change. People with fixations are physically and mentally unsettled. Assailed by thoughts and worries, they therefore lose the formless and the bodiless, and so they flow in the waves of birth and death, always sunk in a sea of suffering. If you can collect body and mind, set aside thoughts and worries, not let inner states out, not let external objects in, and be inwardly and outwardly clear and serene, this is called clarification. When you get to the point where you inwardly forget the mind and outwardly forget the body, so that the unique reality is clear and you are like cosmic space, open and unobstructed, how can there be any creation or change therein? Confucian literature says, not envying, not seeking, no blame, no complicity. Not envying and not seeking means not being subject to creation. No blame and no complicity means not being subject to change. The Connected Sayings commentary in the I-ming says, at a distance, find it in things. Nearby, find it in yourself. I say that at a distance, find it in things means you know all objects are insubstantial and temporary. Nearby, find it in yourself means you know the physical and mental elements are all empty of ultimate reality. By outwardly being aloof of all objects and inwardly detached from the physical and mental elements, you can accord with the celestial workings. Be pleased with heaven. Know the beginning and end of things. Know the reason of the hidden and the obvious. Know the explanation of life and death. Find out truth. Fulfill human nature and arrive at the purpose of life. Because of being pleased with heaven, you do not worry. Because of fulfilling nature, you do not doubt. Who can reach this but those who achieve knowledge? Those who accomplish knowledge are sincere, lucid, calm, and stable. So they know that illusory forms continually arise and pass away, that the deluded mind is discriminatory and partial, that society and the times shift and change uncertainly, and that works perish and do not last. When the refinement brought about through observation is thoroughly mature, this is called the accomplishment of sages. Because it is permeated by unity, there is no creation or change. If you do not accomplish knowledge, you cannot determine the character of things. If you cannot determine things, you change and shift along with things. Then where are essence and life? If there is fluid movement, not fixated, circulating throughout space, heaven and earth then meet in oneself. Myriad things are complete in oneself. When you return to vision of the heart of heaven, myriad existence return to open non-reification. Then creation and change cease. Metaphorically speaking, if heaven and earth do not move fluidly, sun and moon do not travel, then where are the combinations of yin and yang? If yin and yang do not interact, they do not ascend and descend. Then how can myriad beings exist? The bodies of heaven and earth are pure and unified because they do not mix the aberrant with the true and do not change. Therefore, there is no creation and no change. The creation of creationless creation is great creation. The change of changeless change is great change. Those who see this thereby know that all things and beings in the world are temporary compounds, and that the operations of yin and yang are all illusions. Who but the most fluid in the world can keep up with this? Viewing the matter in this way, we can see that the three teachings, Buddhism, Taoism, and Confucianism, are just a matter of mind. Creation and change depend on mind, and transcendence of creation and change also depends on mind. In learning Buddhism, it is essential to see essence. To see essence, it is first necessary to remove habit-conditioned energy by means of certainly stabilized will, and to preserve clear lucidity by the power of strict observation. After that, see through all kinds of vain illusory mental states and do not fixate on things so that thoughts do not follow feelings. Thoughts are the root of affliction. Mental states are the seeds of reification. When thoughts arise, all afflictions arise. When thoughts cease, all afflictions cease. When mental states are produced, all sorts of reifications are produced. When mental states pass away, all sorts of reifications pass away. When thoughts arise, stop them. All come from mind. When you reach the point where arising and passing away itself passes away, and quiescence is bliss, this is seeing essence. Students today who cannot see essence are hindered by two obstructions, abstract and concrete. Abstract obstructions cannot be dissolved but by great perception. Concrete obstructions cannot be dissolved but by great cessation. Great perception means cutting through by knowledge. Great cessation means controlling by power. When cutting through by knowledge is perfected, all abstractions are empty of absoluteness. When controlling by power is perfected, all concretizations are empty of absoluteness. When you realize the great emptiness of emptiness and the ultimate reality of reality, this is the consummation of great perception. Then thoughts and emotional consciousness of body, mind, society, and events all stop at once. This is the consummation of great cessation. Learning Taoism is a matter of preserving essence. To preserve essence, it is first necessary to cut through delusions with the sword of wisdom, dissolve attachment to sense experience by maximizing the transcendent primordial consciousness, and minimizing the temporally conditioned consciousness, and to use the power of concentration to forget feelings, cut off rumination, remove psychological burdens, and clarify the mind. When the mind is clear, burdens removed, rumination ended, and feelings forgotten, this is called preserving essence. When the true essence is present, there is no creation or change. Students today get carried away by emotional consciousness. If you want to get rid of emotional consciousness, first get rid of the fluctuating mind. When the mind does not fluctuate, then the body does not fluctuate. Getting rid of the fluctuating mind begins with having no thoughts. When you have fully developed the habit of freedom from thought, you can reach a state of serene concentration, free from dreams and thoughts. When this is fully developed, you can reach a state free from conception. Freedom from dreams is important for the present. Freedom from conception is important at the end of life. Free from conception, you do not create. Free from dreams, you do not change. Not creating, not changing, you are not born and do not die. The essence of the study of Confucianism lies in fulfilling human nature. Fulfilling human nature is a matter of clarifying enlightened qualities and resting in ultimate good. After you know where to rest, then you have stability. When you have stability, you can forget things in self. The statement on the hexagram mountain in the I-ming says, stopping at the back, you don't find the body. Walking in the garden, you don't see the person. No blame. Stopping at the back means forgetting oneself. Walking in the garden, not seeing the person, means forgetting things. Knowing how and where to stop, therefore being able to forget things in self, and so to keep the celestial design intact, is called fulfilling human nature. When people today cannot fulfill human nature, it is because of burdens of body and mind. Once there are burdens, there is blockage. It is necessary to apply firm decisiveness and effective resolution. By being firm and decisive, you can forget things. By being effectively resolute, you can forget self. When things and self are forgotten, you will surely fulfill human nature and arrive at the meaning of life. I observe that most people in the world think this body has a self in it. This reveals a serious lack of reflection. As this body exists due to creation, did it have a form before it was created? Did it have a name? Did it have a self? After it has changed, does it have a form? Does it have a name? Does it have a name? Does it have a self? Since none of these exist either before or after, how can we cling to reification of self only in the interval between? People do not realize that body, mind, the world, and events are fundamentally unreal in an ultimate sense. When we try to find past, present, and future, ultimately we cannot grasp them. The past has disappeared. The present changes from moment to moment. The future is uncertain. Throughout the ages, people have fixated on unreal objects in the midst of dreamlike illusion, forming the seeds of repetitious life cycles. Therefore, they are born and die without hope of release. If, on the other hand, people in the midst of these dreamlike illusory objects can experientially know them for what they are, and thus can dissolve fixations, they can reach enlightenment. One day I brought up this issue for my students to look into. 2 or 3 of them understood to some extent, so I composed this essay for them to convey mind by mind. If you can realize directly, inwardly understand, and tacitly comprehend, then you know how and where to stop, not recounting the past, not worrying about the future, not being attached to the present. When these 3 are combined, you attain great independence. You roam freely in the ocean of tranquility, wander in the homeland of nothing whatsoever, float in the realm of contentment. When you get to this point, you will know that creation and change have no power over you. But there is still something yet higher. Tell me, what do you call that which is higher? Turn over the legs of nothingness, smash cosmic space to smithereens, and only then will you be done. The bottom trigram, or inner trigram, of our primary hexagram will be read as broken, broken, solid. Which is the trigram Gen, mountain. The mountain is still. It is a limit where you must stop. Gen brings each cycle to an end, defining a space where we can recognize, assimilate, and complete our experience. He creates a personal still center amid change where we can retreat for perspective and a firm foundation for new growth. He is well-grounded, confident, and of independent spirit. He is still and knows. Mountain is the youngest son, child of maturity. In the cycle of directions and seasons, he is the northeast, late winter approaching spring, the pivot between cycles. Our top or outer trigram of our primary hexagram will be read as broken, solid, broken, which is Con, water. Con is deep water, flowing and formless. He is the complement of Li, dark where Li is bright, unconscious to her sharp lucidity, and represents a more fluid, intuitive, and emotional way of perceiving. This is danger, exposure and solitude, and the need to respond with courageous self-reliance when confronted by the haunting unknown. Water is the middle sun, situated in the north, associated with midwinter and midnight. Therefore, our primary hexagram will be made up of Jen, mountain below, and Con, water above, which will give us the hexagram 39. We have a changing or old yang line and an old yin line. These will both change into their young opposites. So this will become young yin. This will become young yang. So that will give us a bottom or inner trigram of our secondary or supporting hexagram of broken, 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 which is Kun, earth. Kun is earth, open to receive and support what comes to her, providing for its full development. She makes inspiration manifest, gives it form, and sustains its growth. Earth is available to be used, ready to lend her strength to the work without limit. She protects and accepts all things in their totality, present and potential, in an unconditional embrace. Earth is mother, found in the southwest and the harvest time of late summer and early autumn. The top or outer trigram of our secondary or supporting hexagram will be read as broken, solid, solid. This is Xun, wind or wood. Xun is both wind and living plants. Whatever penetrates, spreads, and grows, shaping itself to the space available or shaping that space to its own nature. She is responsive flexibility, sensitively improvising and adapting. Like the wind, she can always find a way through because she never creates any resistance, and so her influence is subtle and gradual but far-reaching. In the family of Trigrams, Xun is the eldest daughter, gentle and submissive. She belongs to the southeast and to late spring and early summer. This will give us Xun, wind or wood, above earth, Kun, which is the hexagram. 20. We'll read from I-ming's Taoist I-ching, written in 1796 as a Taoist adept. Thomas Cleary has translated it for us. In the beginning, the hexagrams are broken down into really short definitions. 39 Our primary hexagram is called Halting, trouble. Preserving the primordial in the midst of the temporal. And 20, our supporting hexagram, observation. Alertness, gradually progressing through receptivity to the requirements of the time. Inner vigilance. We'll start by reading the commentary section and then move to the text section. The commentary section has changing lines we can read. We'll first read the text section, which has changing lines we can read. Then we'll move to the commentary section, which doesn't. The way we'll understand the question we bring to the I Ching when we consult the oracle, with the general context of how can I act in creative relation with the spirits or forces shaping this moment of time. That question will be understood when we understand how the parts of our reading work together. The key to understanding a reading is to know your way around its main components, how they fit together, and the different roles they play. If your reading includes changing lines, then you will need to understand primary hexagram, relating hexagram, and changing lines together. The two hexagrams in conversation with one another map out your whole answer. The primary hexagram shows you quite directly what your answer involves. The relating hexagram generally describes what the answer is about for you. It sets the primary hexagram in a broader context, an influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. If the two hexagrams map out a landscape for you, then the changing lines stick a pin in that map to say you are here. Or at least, here are some places you may find yourself. They are the immediate answer to your question. As the most specific, focused part of a reading, their message always takes precedence over all other elements. For example, the primary hexagram might describe a reassuringly secure situation, but a changing line could warn how insecure your position is within it. Hexagram 39 in the Taoist I Ching. Our primary hexagram, halting, trouble. When halted, the southwest is beneficial, not the northeast. It is profitable to see a great person. Innocence is auspicious. Explanation. Halting means forward progress is difficult. As for the qualities of the hexagram, above is water, dangerous, and below is mountain. Stopping. Stopping in the midst of danger, it is therefore called halting. This hexagram represents preserving the primordial in the midst of the temporal. It follows on the previous hexagram, people in the home. In people in the home, illumination is not used outwardly. It is the work of refining the self. Refining the self is only refining the acquired yin. From the time people lose the primordial and temporal conditioning takes charge, the human mind is perilous, like the two yins being outside one yang in water. The mind of Tao is faint, like the one yang fallen between two yins in water. With yang fallen into yin, the mind of Tao is burdened by the human mentality and cannot manifest actively. It is all the human mind that does things. This is the extreme of danger. But as long as there is danger, it is necessary to be able to stop in danger. If one can stop in danger, then the human mentality gradually evaporates and the mind of Tao gradually grows. It is possible thereby to deal with danger and to leave danger without being injured by the negative energy of acquired conditioning. The statement, "When halted, the southwest is beneficial, not the northeast," is precisely the secret of dealing with danger and leaving danger. The southwest is the province of earth, the homeland of utter emptiness and complete stillness. Utter emptiness beckons fulfillment. When stillness is complete, then action goes into motion. The primordial energy comes from within empty nothingness. As the mind of Tao appears, the human mind naturally recedes. This is the place that gives life to the self, so it is called beneficial. The northeast is the direction of mountain, where yin energy has nearly stripped yang completely away. Yin energy stripping away yang, following its desires, the human mind takes charge of affairs, and the mind of Tao is on the verge of disappearance. This is the place that kills the self, so it is called not beneficial. It is beneficial to enliven the mind of Tao and withdraw the human mind. It is not beneficial to arouse the human mind and damage the mind of Tao. If you enliven the mind of Tao, then you can deal with danger. If you can withdraw the human mind, then you can get out of danger. So the fact that it is surely profitable to see a great person and innocence is auspicious is because a great person is one who has not lost the mind of an infant. The mind of an infant does not discriminate or cognize, has no greed or ambition. This is the mind of Tao. When one has the mind of Tao, one is a great person. Without the mind of Tao, one is a petty person. Getting rid of the human mentality is not possible without seeing the mind of Tao. Only when seeing the mind of Tao can one get rid of the human mind. So it is profitable to see a great person simply means it is beneficial to see the mind of Tao. Once one has seen the mind of Tao, false and true are distinguished. At peace, in accord, essence is stabilized and feelings forgotten. No longer seduced by the human mentality, by stillness one can control danger, and by action one can solve danger. Stillness and action are both functions of the mind of Tao. Meeting danger with rectitude, maintaining rectitude in the midst of danger, eventually one will surely get out of danger, resolve danger, and fulfill the great path, completing it auspiciously. And now our supporting hexagram, which gives our primary hexagram a direction of travel and influence, and shows how it relates to us. Observing our secondary or supporting hexagram. Observing, one has washed the hands but not made the offering. There is sincerity, which is reverent. Explanation. Observing means alert observation, being careful. As for the qualities of the hexagram, above is wind, penetrating, and below is earth, receptive. It has the meaning of gradually progressing in accord with proper timing, advancing without impetuosity, with alert observation, therefore it is called observing. This hexagram represents alert observation with clarity of mind. It follows on the previous hexagram, degeneration. In degeneration, wind is inside stopping, which stops yin energy from entering. This is how degeneration is corrected. The way of correcting degeneration is not possible without the achievement of attentive observation with clarity of mind. The achievement of attentive observation is all a matter of restoring the primordial while in the midst of the temporal, reversing the ordinary flow while in its very midst. When the yin in people is strong and the yang is weak, it is like the present hexagram's 4 yins arising one after another while the 2 yangs gradually dissolve. The strength of yang energy is going to be erased by yin energy. Attentive observation with clarity of mind reverses this weak yang so that it is not injured by yin energy. But people's temperaments are fixated, and accumulated habits are already deep-seated. The yin energy cannot be made submissive all at once, so it is necessary to use gradual cultivation, going along with its desires to gradually soften and guide them, causing it to naturally evaporate, naturally transform, naturally submit, naturally retreat. This means that when the real comes, the false naturally submits. If one can be truthful inwardly, then acquired influences will naturally disappear. Yang gradually advances upward and yin submissively retreats downward. Yang governs yin and yin obeys yang. Yin and yang in harmony, inside and outside, are one. This is like when honoring a deity. When one has washed the hands but not yet made the offering, there is sincerity, which is reverent. Whenever you honor a deity, first you clean your hands and make your faith sincere within. After that, you present offerings, reverent without. By the gradual effect of sincerity, you communicate with the spirit of the deity, not in a physical sense. This is the meaning of looking up to a deity. The path of cultivation of reality is like honoring a deity. First, you make the mind sincere and truthful, then you practice it in the body. Spiritual clarity works silently, swift without being hasty, entering by sincerity, functioning with flexibility, penetrating the barrier between yin and yang, producing light in the openness within. From observation of the spirit, reaching observation of the great, a black pearl hangs in the great void, illumining the whole world as though it were in your palm. Then every step is in accord with the sublime Tao. All yin submits and all yang returns. The understanding of the spirit is up to the person. It requires clear knowledge of the subtle meaning of this hexagram, being receptive yet advancing like the wind. The advance based on receptivity. If you know this, then with spiritual observation and great observation, you preserve the real and eliminate the false, so there is eternal life. If you don't know it, then with small observation and short-sightedness, you accept the false and reject the real, thus injuring life. It is simply a matter of the difference between truth and falsehood in observation. Going back to our primary hexagram 39, halting, to read changing lines 3 and 6. They have each their own general contexts. Changing line 3 has the general context of an emerging identity facing a transition with fear or desire, resolution or indecision. And changing line 6, beyond the main action, reviewing experience, asking what comes next. Changing line 3 of our primary hexagram 39, halting or trouble. Going leads to trouble, come back. Explanation. When there's too much adamant hardness on the brink of danger, to go on would lead to trouble. It is lucky if firmness is correct and one can stop upon seeing danger, and come back rather than go on. Sweep away the human mind and hold on to the mind of Tao, having no trouble even in difficulty. This is being firm and not getting into trouble. And our changing line 6. Going is trouble, coming is great. For good results, it is beneficial to see a great person. Explanation. At the end of trouble, just when the human mind is calm and the mind of Tao appears, if one does not understand the process and tries to forcibly control the human mind, that will, on the contrary, obscure the mind of Tao. To go on thus would mean trouble. If one comes back to nurture the mind of Tao without trying to control the human mind, there is great merit in this. However, it is surely beneficial to see a great person, who is someone that has understood the Tao, attained reality, and gotten out of danger, who thoroughly understands the remedy and process every step of the way out of danger. The end of trouble is precisely the gate of life, the door of death, the point where both fortune and misfortune are possible. It is necessary to have the verbal instruction and mental transmission of a true teacher before one can seek to live in the midst of killing, get out of trouble, resolve trouble, and not be confined by yin and yang. This is seeking a teacher's verbal instruction to solve trouble. So the way to get out of trouble and solve it requires the instruction of a genuine teacher to break through the gate of life and the door of death. Only then can the task be done. If you do not know the gate of life and the door of death, not only do you not know the mind of Tao, you do not even know the human mind. If you do not know the mind of Tao, how can you bring it to life? If you do not know the human mind, how can you get rid of it? If the mind of Tao is not brought to life and the human mind is not dismissed, only fooling around in deviated methods, you will bring on trouble where there was none. This is of no benefit to essence and life, and is in fact harmful. How can we not beware? That was the text. We'll now go on to read the commentary section of each of our hexagrams. Primary hexagram 39, halting, water above, mountain below. There is water atop a mountain, halting. Thus do superior people examine themselves and cultivate virtue. Halting means there is difficulty and one cannot proceed onward. Above is water, below is mountain. There is water atop a mountain. A mountain is high and is very earthy. Add water on top of that, and earthiness is strong while the celestial is weak. This is the image of halting. What superior people see in this is that when people are unable to make progress on the path of sages, it is because they are competitive and contentious, emotional and greedy, not knowing how to improve themselves and correct their errors. Therefore, superior people examine themselves and cultivate virtue. If one is incapable of self-examination, one will not have self-mastery and will be subject to manipulation. Every act, every step will entail danger and difficulty, will involve injury to life. Only by self-examination can one abandon the false and enter the real, not being deluded by externals. With every step, one's feet then tread the real ground, and virtue can be cultivated. When virtue is cultivated, one's nature is stabilized and feelings are forgotten, so that one is unshakable and unwavering as a mountain. Not halted by obstacles, one cannot be injured by difficulties and troubles. But the work of self-examination and cultivation of virtue requires clear knowledge of the image of the hexagram. The water is above, the mountain is below. The water being above means that the danger that causes halting is external, while the mountain being below means that developmental cultivation is internal. Seeing there is danger, if one can then use that danger to cultivate character, then even though the situation be dangerous, the mind is not in danger. Outwardly there is danger, but inwardly it is not dangerous. The danger lies elsewhere, while cultivation of virtue and character lies in oneself. Using virtue to ward off danger, danger dissolves. Using danger to cultivate character, virtuous action grows daily more lofty. So obstacles cannot faze one. Indeed, it is after being halted by obstacles that one can cultivate character and virtue. If students can recognize the reality of self-examination, there is no need to worry about halting, and no need to worry about inability to develop virtue. And then our secondary or supporting hexagram 20, observing, wind above, earth below. Wind is over the earth, observing. Thus did the kings of yore set up education after examination of the region and observation of the people. Observing is watching, looking. Above is wind, below is earth. There is wind blowing over the earth. When wind blows over the earth, wherever it goes, everything sways and dances along with it. This is like people being moved and influenced by what they observe. This is the image of observing. What the ancient kings saw in this was that every particular region has its own atmosphere. Every particular region has its own character. Therefore, it will not do to cling to one system to teach or rule them all. Hence, they examined the atmosphere of each region and observed the character of the people, setting up education according to the region and giving guidance according to the person. Just as the wind blowing over the earth goes over hill and dale, east, west, south, north, unhindered, wherever it goes, so also was the teaching of the kings of yore. All those who are invested with the responsibility of teaching others should emulate the kings of yore and observe the locality and the character of the people so as to be able to teach them effectively. We'll read from James Dekorne, our hexagrams, again. Hexagram 39 he calls impasse. Other titles might be obstruction, the symbol of difficulty, arresting movement, trouble, obstacles, barrier, halt, halting, limping, afoot, sit tight, don't move. A quote from D.F. Hook, one is surrounded by an underwater reef and should wait for assistance. Judgment. Leg. During an impasse, advantage is found in the southwest, disadvantage in the northeast. See the great man. Firm correctness brings good fortune. Wilhelm/Baines, obstruction. The southwest furthers. The northeast does not further. It furthers one to see the great man. Perseverance brings good fortune. Blowfold, trouble. The west and the south are favorable, but not the east and north. That is to say, if we try to forward our plans by proceeding in either of those directions, we shall get bogged down or lost. It could also mean that we should be driven to unvirtuous conduct. It is advisable to see a great man. We should seek advice from someone of lofty moral stature and profound wisdom. Persistence in a righteous course brings good fortune. Ritsema/Karcher, limping, harvesting. Western south, not harvesting. Eastern north. Harvesting, visualizing great people. Trial, significant. This hexagram describes your situation in terms of being weak, afflicted, or hampered. It emphasizes that going ahead, even though haltingly, is the adequate way to handle it. To be in accord with the time, you are told to limp. Tao Te Ching. The good direction is where there is no abyss or high mountains, like the southwest, but not the northeast. One should go to the great leader who can work with people in breaking through obstructions. The image. Leg. Water on the mountain, the image of impasse. The superior man turns around to examine himself and cultivate his virtue. Wilhelm/Baines. Water on the mountain, the image of obstruction. Thus, the superior man turns his attention to himself and molds his character. Blowfold. This hexagram symbolizes water upon a mountain. The superior man cultivates virtue by bringing about a revolution within himself. Ritsema/Karcher. Above mountain possessing stream, limping. A Chun-Su, or chief son, or superior man, uses reversing individuality to renovate actualizing Tao. Actualized Tao means ability to follow the course traced by the ongoing process of the cosmos, linked with acquire. D. Acquiring that which makes a being become what it is meant to be. Commentary. Confucius/Leg. Impasse means difficulty, with the trigram of peril up ahead. It is a wise man who can stop his advance at the first sign of danger. Advantage in the southwest means that the dynamic line has advanced to the central position. In the northeast, however, progress is halted. Seeing the great man ensures progress and success. All of the lines except the first are in their appropriate places, suggesting the firm correctness in which the regions of the kingdom are brought to their natural order. Great indeed is the work to be done during an impasse. Leg. Impasse is the symbol of incompetency in the feet and legs, involving difficulty in walking. Hence it represents a state of the kingdom which makes government an arduous task. The figure teaches how to perform this task under the prevailing circumstances. The judgment requires three things: the attention to place, the presence of the great man, and the observance of firm correctness. According to King Wen's arrangement of the trigrams, the southwest is occupied by the trigram of the earth, and the northeast by the trigram of the mountain. The former is the fertile lowland, the latter the mountain peaks. The former is easily traversed and held, while the latter presents obstacles. Thus, the attention to place becomes a calculation of circumstances, differentiating those that are promising from those that are likely to fail. The great man is the correctly dynamic ruler in the fifth place, with the proper magnetic correlate in line 2. However, favorable position and circumstances and the presence of the great man do not relieve us from the observance of firm correctness. This principle is consistent throughout the I-ming. Zhang Tzu says, "We see here a steep and difficult mountain, on the top of which is water. Each trigram represents perilousness. There is peril above and below. Hence it shows the difficulties of the state. The application of the symbolism is illustrated by the words of Mencius. When our actions do not realize our desires, we must turn inwards and examine ourselves in every point." Notes and paraphrases. Judgment. Dissolve the polarities of an impasse by seeking its most fertile integration. Use your will in harmony with the principles of the work. The superior man seeks his center and refines his commitment. Lines 2 and 5 of this difficult hexagram show those who struggle with hardship. All of the other lines show images of an improper advance followed by a proper return to a former position. Ritsema/Karcher's characterization of the hexagram's overall meaning as an injunction to go ahead, even though haltingly, is the adequate way to handle the situation, is anomalous and at variance with the general import of this figure. Legg's Confucian commentary is more in keeping with its meaning. It is a wise man who can stop his advance at the first sign of danger. Legg also chooses an excellent paraphrase of the role of the superior man in the image with his quotation from Mencius. When our actions do not realize our desires, we must turn inwards and examine ourselves in every point. In other words, the chances are good that the impasse may be self-created, and when the ego introspects with care, the reasons usually become apparent. It is not unknown at a certain stage of development for the ego, overwhelmed with the enormity of the work, to evade its responsibilities and vainly try to return to the bliss of its former ignorance. At such times, it soon becomes clear that no matter what you attempt, success will be blocked. Where others succeed with ease, it will take you 5 times as much effort just to break even. This impasse is permanent until you reassume responsibility for the work. The following quotation is an allegory of this condition. It's a quote from Haggai 1, 6-10. Yahweh Sabaoth says this, "Reflect carefully how things have gone for you. You have sown much and harvested little. You eat but never have enough. Drink but never have your fill. Put on clothes but do not feel warm. The wage earner gets his wages only to put them in a purse riddled with holes. The abundance you expected proved to be little. When you brought the harvest in, my breath spoiled it. And why? It is Yahweh Sabaoth who speaks, because while my house lies in ruins, you are busy with your own, each one of you. In one way or another, the self will attain its intent. To ignore this hard truth is to experience impasse." And now our supporting hexagram 20. He calls contemplation. Other titles might be view, the symbol of steady observation, looking down, observation, viewing, looking up, observing, admiration, to examine, rulers and their subjects, introspection, perception, contemplation of the work, judgment, leg, Contemplation shows us a worshipper who has purified himself but must still present his sacrifice with that dignified sincerity which inspires reverence. Wilhelm/Baines, contemplation. The ablution has been made, but not yet the offering. Full of trust, they look up to him. Blowfold, looking down. This word often means contemplation, and I have so translated it when the context so requires. The ablution has been performed, but not the sacrifice. Sincerity inspires respect. This is generally understood to mean that the first step has been taken, or that one has bound oneself to follow a certain course, but that the main duties are yet to be performed. Ritsema/Karcher, viewing, hand washing and also not worshipping, possessing conformity like a presence. This hexagram describes your situation in terms of something seen from a distance, out of immediate reach. It emphasizes that carefully observing and divining the meaning is the adequate way to handle it. Wu, admiration indicates a worshipper washing his hands in preparation for the offerings, but not participating in it. He shows sincerity and awe. The image, leg. The image of earth and wind moving above it form contemplation. The ancient kings, in accordance with this, examined the different regions of the kingdom to see the ways of the people and set forth their instructions. Wilhelm/Baines, the wind blows over the earth, the image of contemplation. Thus the kings of old visited the regions of the world, contemplated the people, and gave them instruction. Blowfold. This hexagram symbolizes wind blowing across the earth. The ancient rulers visited the different regions to keep watch over their people and carefully instruct them. Cleary, too. Wind travels over the earth, observing. Kings of yore examined the regions and observed the people to set up education. In Buddhist terms, the ancient Buddhas examined the regions of possible experience and observed the people in various states of being, then set up various teachings to accommodate them, just as the wind travels over the earth, reaching everywhere. Commentary. Confucius/Leg, observation from above, from the trigram of flexibility, surmounting the trigram of docility. The ruler is in his correct central position and thus exhibits his lessons to all below. He has purified himself, but not yet sacrificed. All beneath look to him and are transformed. When we contemplate the spirit-like way of heaven, we see how the 4 seasons proceed without error. The sages, in accordance with this spirit-like way, laid down their instructions, and all under heaven yield submission to them. Leg. The Chinese character from which this hexagram is named is used in the sense of both seeing and being seen. The theme is the sovereign and his people, how he shows himself to them and how they in turn perceive him. The 2 dynamic lines at the top belong to the ruler, and the 4 magnetic lines below represent his subjects. In the judgment, the ruler is portrayed as a worshipper at the commencement of a sacrifice. He is the great manifester in line 5. The lower trigram symbolizes earth with the attribute of docility. The upper trigram symbolizes wind with the attributes of flexibility and penetration. Wind moving above the earth has the widest sweep, and nothing escapes its influence. The personal influence of the ruler affects much, but the ancient kings wished to add to that the power of published instructions, which were specially adapted to the character and circumstances of the people. The spirit-like way of heaven is the invisible order underlying the laws of nature. Note: Ritsema/Karcher used the phrase viewing heaven's spirit Tao. The all-wise person uses spirit Tao to set up teaching. Spirit or spirits, Shen, independent spiritual powers that confer intensity on heart and mind by acting on the soul. Qi, gods, daemons. Tao, way or path, ongoing progress of being and the course it traces for each specific person or thing. The ideogram, go and ahead and head, leading, and the path it creates. Notes and paraphrases, judgment. Contemplate your motivations and discern the purity of your intent. Put your money where your mouth is, or walk your talk. The superior man evaluates and rectifies his attitudes. The ancient kings in the image symbolize the creators of an original state of perfection, an archetypal model toward which the superior man aspires. This idea is common to all mystical traditions, many of which depict this state in the image of an ideal or prototypical man. Here is a summary of the Gnostic conception. This is a quote from H. Jonas, The Gnostic Religion. Not only the body, but also the soul is a product of the cosmic powers, which shape the body in the image of the divine primal or archetypal man and animated it with their own psychical forces. These are the appetites and passions of natural man, each of which stems from it and corresponds to one of the cosmic spheres, i.e. planets, and all of which together make up the astral soul of man, his psyche. In the Kabbalah, the template of this archetypal man, named Adam Kadmon, exists in each of the four realms of consciousness corresponding to intuition, intellect, emotion, and sensation, and he is perceived as androgynous in all of these worlds except the last, the sensation world of our physical space-time reality. A quote from C. Ponce, Kabbalah. The Adam of these first three worlds was androgynous. The Adam of the fourth world is the Adam of the expulsion, the Adam of flesh, traversing the desert of his exile, and the Adam capable of reproducing himself now that he is no longer androgynous. Considering that androgyny is one of the symbols used in the Western mystery tradition to depict the correct union of male and female forces within the psyche, we quickly recognize that the properly matched male and female correlate lines in the I Ching are a Chinese depiction of the identical concept. Note that the messages of the following three quotations are in complete accord with the goal of the work as outlined in the I Ching. A quote from C. Ponce again in Kabbalah. Somewhere there is an Adam within each of us in need of restoration, in exile from the garden. The aim of Kabbalism is the restoration of the divine man in the medium of mortal man. We are the laboratory and we are the workers who work in that space. And a quote from The Secret of the Golden Flower. Within our 6-foot body, we must strive for the form which existed before the laying down of heaven and earth. A quote from Gareth Knight in The Work of a Modern Occult Fraternity. The destiny of man is to build the heavenly Jerusalem on earth. In other words, to civilize a planet. It is the aim of the occultist, in concert with all men of goodwill, to bring about this heavenly fact into earthly reality. And the only way it will come about is by every man doing the right thing at the right time for 24 hours a day. The ancient kings in hexagram number 20 based their laws upon their recognition of diversity among the various forces which make up the kingdom of the psyche. Their divine regulations therefore represent the proper ecology existing between heaven and earth, yin and yang, male and female, logos and eros. In this regard, the I Ching's version of the archetypal man might be seen as hexagram number 63, completion, in which the polarity of each of the lines is in perfect correlation. See the editor's commentary on hexagram 11 for further insights into this idea. The theme of the hexagram is contemplation of your situation to see if your attitude meets the archetypal standards of the work. The worshipper in the judgment has purified himself for sacrifice but has not yet carried it out. Wilhelm uses the word ablution in his translation of the judgment. An ablution is a ritual cleansing associated with a religious rite. In Dictionary of Symbols by J.E. Curlott, says ablution. In alchemy, the adept worker achieves success only by purifying his soul of all that commonly agitates it. Washing, then, symbolizes the purification not so much of objective and external evil as of subjective and inner evils. The principle involved in this alchemic process is that implied in the maxim, deny thyself. It is important to note that the sacrifice has yet to be performed. Preparation is meaningless until it is acted upon. Psychologically, this refers to intellectual gnosis, which still needs to be grounded in behavior. A quote from Many Lives, Many Masters by Brian L. Weiss: wisdom is achieved very slowly. This is because intellectual knowledge, easily acquired, must be transformed into emotional or subconscious knowledge. Once transformed, the imprint is permanent. Behavioral practice is the necessary catalyst of this reaction. Without action, the concept will wither and fade. Theoretical knowledge without practical application is not enough. Intellectually, the answers have always been there, but this need to actualize by experience, to make the subconscious imprint permanent by emotionalizing and practicing the concept, is the key. Without changing lines, contemplation is an oracular invitation for you to consider your situation and especially your motivations in regard to it. One way of doing this is to reduce everything to a brief written statement, including your best conscious conclusions. Then ask for a comment from the oracle. Often it will become apparent that you have been undergoing a kind of examination. Suggestions for meditation. The ancient kings are mentioned in the images of both this figure and number 21, discernment, immediately following. What are the differences between contemplation and discernment, as depicted in these images? How does the concept of sacrifice relate to this, as mentioned in the judgment? Compare the judgment of this hexagram with hexagram in lines 17:6, 45:2, 46:2, 46:4, 47:2, 47:5, and 63:5 for further insights on this extremely important tenet of the work. And now back to our primary hexagram 39 to read our changing lines 3 and 6. They have the general context again of 3, an emerging identity facing a transition with fear or desire, resolution or indecision. And 6, beyond the main action, reviewing experience, asking what comes next. Changing line 3 of hexagram 39, impasse. Leg. The third line dynamic shows its subject advancing, but only to greater difficulties. He remains stationary and returns to his former associates. Lu. Going leads to obstruction, therefore he returns. He will be happy. Caution will prevent loss or injury. Commentary. Confucius/Leg. His associates, represented by the lower trigram, rejoice in him. Wilhelm/Baines. Those within rejoice over it. Blofeld. This passage presages happiness for the women of the family. Literally, happiness for those within. This could also be translated internal happiness, but I think the above rendering is what the author meant. Ritzema/Karcher. Inside rejoicing in it indeed. Leg. Line 3 is dynamic and in a place of strength, but his correlate 6th line is magnetic, so that his advance would not be supported. He waits, therefore, for a better time and nurtures the 2 lines below, who naturally cling to him. On line 3, Kuang Ying Ta says, of the 3 lines of the lower trigram, only the third is yang, above the 2 others who are of the yin nature. They cling to him and are represented as rejoicing. Notes and paraphrases. Su. Under certain circumstances, however, it is the duty of the man to refrain from dealing with obstructions. Should the father, for example, fail to return from his reckless adventure, the dependents entrusted to his care may not survive. Wing. If you abandon your present concerns in order to struggle with an external obstacle, you are in danger of jeopardizing the security of those close to you, and perhaps undermining the structure of your life. It would be a good idea to return to your center and reconsider your plan. Editor. This line changes the hexagram to number 8, holding together, the corresponding line of which states, we see its subject seeking for union with such as ought not to be associated with. This reinforces the idea in the present case of returning from a dangerous position. There seems to be very little difference between lines 1 and 3, as in the former, the psychological correlations of going and coming with analysis, differentiation, and synthesis, union, are sometimes useful. A quote from L.W. Dodd. Much that I sought I could not find, much that I found I could not bind, much that I bound I could not free, much that I freed returned to me. James Dekorne only has an A rather than A, B, C, or D description in a succinct manner of this changing line. A. Avoid adversity by returning to a former alliance, attitude, or discipline. And now changing line 6. Leg. The 6th line, magnetic, shows its subject going forward only to increase the difficulties, while her remaining stationary will be productive of great merit. There will be good fortune, and it will be advantageous to meet with the great man. Wilhelm/Baines. Going leads to obstructions, coming leads to great fortune. It furthers one to see the great man. Blofeld. To proceed would lead to trouble, coming will produce excellent results. It is advisable to see a great man. We should seek advice from someone of lofty moral stature and profound wisdom. Commentary, Confucius/Leg. Her aim is to assist the subject of the line inside of her. By her course, she follows that noble lord of the figure. Wilhelm/Baines. For the will is directed to inner things. For thus does one follow a man of rank. Blofeld. The first sentence points to directing the will inwards. The other sentence is an injunction to submit ourselves to someone truly noble. Cleary 2. The aim is within, by following what is valuable. Wu. His goals are directed inward. He can get his advices from the highly placed. Leg. The action of the hexagram is over. Where can the magnetic 6th line go? Let her abide where she is, and serve the great man immediately below her. So shall she also be great, in meritorious action at least. The line inside of her refers to the ruler in line 5. Notes and paraphrases. Su. The man cannot go forward. Needs to remain where he is and serve the great man in order to achieve meritorious deeds. Wing. Although it seems that you may ignore the turmoil around you and proceed with your own affairs, you will not be able to do so. You will inexorably be drawn into the struggle. Look to the paths of the wise for guidance in this matter. This brings good fortune to all concerned. Editor. The 3rd and 6th lines are proper correlates and very similar in content. Wilhelm comments that the magnetic line 6 and its dynamic correlate in line 3 unite to support the dynamic 5th line ruler, that noble lord of the figure. Leg's commentary misses this subtle distinction. The psychological message is to conjoin your thoughts and feelings and reattune yourself to the principles of the work. To assist the ruler inside of us or direct the will to inner things is to serve the intent of the self. a repetition of the counsel and the judgment to see the great man. A quote from The Alchemy of Healing by E.C. Whitmont. The wisdom of the unconscious stratum is not only different from, but in certain respects even superior to, our ego consciousness. While the conscious ego is normally unfamiliar and unaware of this hidden stratum, the unconscious objective psyche is evidently aware of the ego, its intentions and activities. We have learned through our work with dreams that the unconscious is also aware of facts and connections beyond the ego's scope and capacity to tap, and which are relevant to the past, present, and future. Line 6, James Dekorne breaks down into 4 possible definitions, A through D. A. Forces abdicate their autonomy to break an impasse by serving a greater good. B. The work is taking place on inner planes. Cease your activity and allow the changes to fulfill themselves. C. Don't go there. Seek inner guidance. By focusing on the self and the principles of the work, one attains success. D. Nothing external can be accomplished. Instead, venture inward and work on your attitudes, beliefs, or expectations. Once again, we'll read the same thing now from Hilary Barrett's commentary on the I Ching. Walking your path, creating your future. Hexagram 39, limping. Key questions. Where can you find help? How could you see the obstacles differently? Can you imagine going a different way? Oracle. Limping. Fruitful in the southwest, not fruitful in the northeast. Fruitful to see great people, constancy, good fortune. When life has become an uphill struggle, it's wise to fall back to the southwest. The southwest represents a realm of friendly allies and sun-warmed fields. The northeast is dark and mountainous, the way of calling and adventure. So this is a time to take a step back from the struggle and connect with people more than with ideals. Even if the responsibility is yours alone, the work need not be. Really facing a problem means being prepared to tackle it in a different way, not just trudging doggedly onwards until the path peters out beneath your feet. Seeing great people helps you to keep traveling towards your long-term vision despite the obstacles and course corrections. You may literally find a great person with the experience and wisdom to reorient you. You may be guided by an inner vision of human potential. You, the great, the hero who conquered the floods, toiled for years to build dikes and dredge rivers and was left with a limp. But he succeeded in the end because of what he did differently, enlisting the help of people and spirits, and honoring the flow of the water. Image. Above the mountain there is water, limping. The noble one turns himself around to renew his character. The path ahead is hard and dangerous, and it is time to find another way. The clouds that rise above the mountain become the stream flowing down it. It changes course lightly and easily, naturally finding a path of least resistance, always in motion. Embodying the qualities of mountain and stream, the noble one will join the firmness of his inner resolve with fluid commitment, renewing his strength of character by turning his whole self around. Sequence. From Hexagram 38, opposition. Turning away naturally means hardship, and so limping follows. When you are alienated from others, life is hard. Nothing is provided for you. Everything comes only by your own effort. You struggle, and it is time to look southwest. Pair. Limping forms a pair with release, hexagram 40. Release means letting things take their time. Limping means hardship. Release is a time of flow. This is a time of struggle. Release is free to follow a chosen path. Limping is unavoidably handicapped and obstructed. And yet, limping is also the time for turning yourself around and finding another way. And that contains the potential for release. Our supporting hexagram 20, she calls seeing. Key questions. When you stop searching, what comes into view? If you had no preconceptions, what might you see? Oracle. Seeing, washing hands and not making the offering. There is truth and confidence like a presence. To see is not to focus on some specific thing, but to witness everything that comes into view with open awareness like a heron seeing a lake. In the ritual, the everyday world is washed off, and then there is a breathless pause. It is not yet time to make the offering, but only to watch for what comes, like a presence, into the space. In ordinary life also, you can pause before falling automatically into the next step of the process and see what is present before you respond. Into this space between actions comes truth, its presence as unmistakable as a great person's aura. You need only watch for it as it comes. Image. Wind moves over the earth, seeing. The ancient kings studied the regions, saw the people, and established their teachings. The wind blowing over the earth follows its contours, and so it moves freely and goes everywhere. The influence of the wise kings traveled just as freely because they understood that to convey any idea, share any plan, or impart any wisdom, it works best to be as fluid as the wind. They did not set out to impose a predetermined, rigid curriculum regardless of lived reality. That would have left people unable to relate to the teachings. They went out first to see real people and study the nuances of their daily lives. Then they could teach. Sequence. Seeing follows from hexagram 19, nearing. What is great allows seeing. The presence that nears in hexagram 19 has greatness. When you embody this, you can be truly present to what is, without needing it to be something else, and then you can see. Also, what is great can be seen. Those who witness the space between actions realize that there is truth and confidence like a presence. Unrestricted seeing provides a quality of attention that naturally draws out greatness. Back to hexagram 39 to read our changing lines 3 and 6, which again have the general context. Changing line 3, an emerging identity facing a transition with fear or desire, resolution or indecision. And line 6, beyond the main action, reviewing experience, asking what comes next. Changing line 3, going on, limping, coming back, turn around. The connection and belonging you seek is not to be found along this path. The more you press on, the harder it gets. So pause in your striving and rethink. Beyond all this struggle, where do you ultimately belong? Imagine what you could create if you turned yourself around to follow those natural affinities and renewed your energies through a complete change of direction. Line 6, going on, limping, coming back, mastery, good fortune, fruitful to see a great person. You don't have to keep battling on as before. There's so much more to be gained in maturity and in solid personal achievement by coming back. This doesn't mean you give up and stop, and nor does it mean instantly escaping the struggle. When you come back, you join and interact with the whole of the situation, embracing all of its potential and becoming part of its greater evolution. A great person lives on a larger scale and sees a broader perspective, above and beyond this time of struggle into whole other dimensions of growth. When you see a great person, whether in your inner or outer worlds, you share their vision. Read chapters 17, 79, 23, 38, and 20 out of the Tao Te Ching. Translated by Jia Fu Fang and Jane English. Always do that, never show the actual. There we go. 17. The very highest is barely known by men. Then comes that which they know and love. Then that which is feared. Then that which is despised. He who does not trust enough will not be trusted. When actions are performed without unnecessary speech, people say, "We did it." "79. After a bitter quarrel, some resentment must remain. What can one do about it? Therefore the sage keeps his half of the bargain, but does not exact his due. A man of virtue performs his part, but a man without virtue requires others to fulfill their obligations. The Tao of heaven is impartial. It stays with good men all the time. "23. To talk little is natural. High winds do not last all morning. Heavy rain does not last all day. Why is this? Heaven and earth. If heaven and earth cannot make things eternal, how is it possible for man? He who follows the Tao is at one with the Tao. He who is virtuous experiences virtue. He who loses the way feels lost. When you are at one with the Tao welcomes you. When you are at one with the virtue is always there. When you are at one with the loss is experienced willingly. He who does not trust enough will not be trusted. 38. A truly good man is not aware of his goodness, and is therefore good. A foolish man tries to be good, and is therefore not good. A truly good man does nothing, yet leaves nothing undone. A foolish man is always doing, yet much remains to be done. When a truly kind man does something, he leaves nothing undone. When a just man does something, he leaves a great deal to be done. When a disciplinarian does something and no one responds, he rolls up his sleeves in an attempt to enforce order. Therefore, when Tao is lost, there is goodness. When goodness is lost, there is kindness. When kindness is lost, there is justice. When justice is lost, there is a ritual. Now ritual is the husk of faith and loyalty, the beginning of confusion. Knowledge of the future is only a flowering trapping of Tao. It is the beginning of folly. Therefore, the truly great man dwells on what is real and not with what is on the surface, on the fruit and not the flower. Therefore, accept the one and reject the other. And 20. Give up learning and put an end to your troubles. Is there a difference between yes and no? Is there a difference between good and evil? Must I fear what others fear? What nonsense. Other people are contented, enjoying the sacrificial feast of the ox. In spring, some go to the park and climb the terrace, but I alone am drifting, not knowing where I am. Like a newborn babe before it learns to smile, I am alone without a place to go. Others have more than they need, but I alone have nothing. I am a fool. Oh yes, I am confused. Other men are clear and bright, but I alone am dim and weak. Other men are sharp and clever, but I alone am dull and stupid. Oh, I drift like the waves of the sea without direction, like the restless wind. Everyone else is busy, but I alone am aimless and depressed. I am different. I am nurtured by the Great Mother, nourished by the Great Mother.